Okay, let's see how we did in that exercise. So in this video we're going to look at the answers to questions 1 to 3 on the longer text. So it was quite a long text. It was 4 paragraphs, about maybe half the length of what the National 5 texts are like, but enough for us to show one skill. Remember, the full National 5 text will test every skill. There's plenty in this text to really test and check our ability to do this type of question, the use your own words question in your own words. So let's move straight to the questions. Question 1, question 2, question 3. Hopefully you've written down some answers. I'm going to take you through my thinking, my mindset, what thoughts go through my head while I'm answering these questions, and hopefully you can then mimic that approach when you're doing the questions yourself. So as always, we're using the formula: find it, change it, find it, change it. Let's go to question 1. So I'm going to move straight over to the worksheet, and here we go. Question 1 asks us, look at lines 11 to 13, explain in your own words why the writer believes that a fear of flying can seem rational. Now, the first thing I do when I look at a question is I see how many marks is it? 2 marks. So I know I need to make at least 2 points, and then I look at the line references that it tells me to look at. So at lines 11 to 13. So fear of flying can seem rational, lines 11 to 13. So I know that I'm looking here, 11 to 13. So I've now have a quick read of it and say, the circus with their family, impossible for some. That's just the end of a sentence. That's not going to help me here. Fear of flying starts to look quite rational. Now, that's the wording of my question. So I'm pretty sure that whatever comes after that phrase, look quite rational, is going to be my answer. Besides some of the more unique phobias, while I've never heard of a clown attacking anyone at the circus, planes do crash from time to time. Now, there's my answer. And beforehand, as we know in primary school, I could have just written that down word for word and I would have got the marks. But I'm only halfway there. I now need to take that answer, which I've got here, and I need to change it, find it, change it into my own words. So let's have a quick look. Note that I just write, to start answering my question, it can seem rational once. I don't want to write that 3 or 4 times because it's going to take up too much of my time, and time's quite precious in the exam. So let's look what we can change. Fear of flying starts to look quite rational, besides some of the more unique phobias. Now, what can I change unique phobias to? I know phobias are fears, so I'm going to use the word fears. Unique means kind of like that one of a kind. There's not many of them, that idea. So let's change that to when compared to very unusual fears. Now, if you're worried that unusual is too close to unique, I think it's okay here. But if you were worried, you could call it very rare fears, which is even further away from unique. And there's no letter connect that UN pattern at the beginning of the word. So 1 mark there. Then I go back up to the purple box and I look, while I've never heard of a clown attacking anyone at the circus, planes do crash from time to time. So I'm seeing 2 points there. 1 point about the circus and 1 point about planes and clowns in the circus to be particular. So I want to change the word attacking. Probably going to have to leave clowns in. And can I change circus? Well, actually I can, because the circus is known as the big top. So I'm going to use that instead. So I can say, using my original heading, it can seem rational. I didn't have to rewrite that, saving myself time, because clowns don't get violent. So I've changed attacking to get violent. With people in the crowd, so I've changed anyone to people in the crowd. In the big top is what I've changed circus to. So I've done find it, change it, another mark. Now I've got my 2 marks here. And I can be very happy with those 2 marks. And I could move on, but I advise you really strongly not to do that if you're working to good time. Why not throw an extra answer down if there's time to do it? So I'm going to look at the next one. So planes do crash from time to time. So a crash is an accident. And I need to change from time to time because aircraft occasionally have accidents and collisions. So from time to time I've changed to occasionally. Now, here, even though it's a 2-mark question, I've written down 3 answers. Note that I've used bullet points. So that if one of my 3 answers is wrong, hopefully the other 2 are correct. And I'll still get full marks. But look at this. If I had only written 2 marks and one of those is wrong, I'm suddenly losing 50% of the marks. I'm going to repeat that. Half the marks are gone if you do 2 bullet points for a 2-mark question and one of them is wrong. However, if you do your 3 bullet points and one is wrong, you can still get 100% full marks. And it's an error in approach that I see many people making every year when I'm marking the SQA exams. So trying to throw in any extra answers that I can. Okay, let's move on to question 2. So I'm going to switch back over to my document here we'll go down to the questions again. And question 2 says, look at lines 15 to 20. Identify in your own words. There's my clue. That's my trigger telling me, oh, it's a find it, change it question. Find it, change it. As far as possible, 3 ways in which flying is made safe. So I'm asked to do 3 ways. It's a 3-mark question. I know here that it's 3 points that I need to make. So first thing I do is go up and block off 15 to 20. If I was in the exam, I would use a highlighter. Or I would just draw a box around this paragraph so that I know where I'm looking for my answer. It helps me to blinker out the rest of the text, and it seems less difficult, less threatening. So, line 15 seems to be the end of a sentence. Significant number of people who are caught up in those crashes survive. So I think really the answer to the question is beginning here. Flying is one of the safest forms of travel on the planet. Now, again, that doesn't give me then the answer. So I was incorrect there, so I keep going. Here we go. So the reason for the safety, which is my question, is given here. This is primarily because the industry constantly invests in making flying safer and safer. Despite having several engines, a commercial plane can fly with just one working. Every commercial aircraft is submitted to extensive testing before a maiden flight. They're also checked by the pilot and ground crew before every single takeoff. So I found my answer. So I've done the first half of my find it, change it. It's a 3-mark question, so I'm going to try and write down at least 4 points to get an extra point in. I don't write this down in the exam because I've got it highlighted on my test paper, or I've got it marked off with a pen, so I don't need to write this out. All I'm writing is the bit that hasn't appeared on the screen yet, the bottom bit. I start with flying is made safer. So let's have a look. Why is it made safer? Well, the industry constantly invests in making flights safer and safer. So investing is spending money, okay? So they constantly spend money on making flying safer and safer. I'm going to say protecting planes and passengers because it's keeping the essential meaning. Remember, all I'm trying to do is prove to the SQA that I know what that answer means. Try not to repeat. I got to reuse words like aircraft and plane because it's very hard to talk about aircrafts and planes without using those words. But the rest of the words I should be able to change. So then I move back up to the top to the purple box, and it says, despite having several engines, a commercial plane, so that's a plane that flies for business rather than a private plane. So your Ryanairs, your EasyJets, your British Airways, they're all commercial planes, can fly with just one working. So this is the point about the engines. So if you've ever been on a plane or if you've been at the airport, you'll know there's usually an engine under each wing, and some even have one on the tail. Some have 2 or 3 on each wing, depending on the size of the plane. Now I'm going to try and change that word engine. And for me, the first thing I think of is an engine as a car. And I think a car is actually short for a motor car. A motor is another word for engine. So I'm slowly working through my vocabulary till I find the right word. So because aircraft are designed to stay airborne with a single motor, even though they have lots of motors. That's simply it. So if some of the motors break, they can keep going. So I've got the essential meaning there. So 2 of my 3 points looking good. Next one, back to the purple box. Every commercial aircraft is submitted to extensive testing before a maiden flight. So, again, this idea of the commercial aircraft, just planes, extensive testing and a maiden flight. Now, your maiden flight or your maiden journey is the first one. So the Titanic famously sank on its maiden journey, its first ever trip with passengers. So your maiden flight is the first flight. It's a very, very important flight for a new ship or a new airplane or anything like that. So I changed that down the bottom here too, because aircraft have to pass a lot of technical assessments. So I've changed extensive testing. I've changed that to technical assessments. Before a maiden flight, I'm just going to call it a first trip. Try not to overcomplicate it. Now again, I've got my 3 marks here, but if one of them's wrong, I've lost a third, 33 1/3% of the marks going for this question. I don't want to risk that. I'm going to give an extra answer. So I have a look up at the purple box. They're also checked by the pilot and ground crew. Right, is there another word for pilot? Well, they're often referred to as the captain. Right, this is the captain speaking when they come over the intercom. And the ground crew are just the people that work at the airport. You could talk about being out on the tarmac if you wanted to be really specific. So because the captain and airport staff perform lots of inspections, so that's the checks. I say checked by, I've changed it inspections. And before each flight, I've changed that from, in the purple box, every single takeoff. So even if one of these is wrong, I still have a good chance of getting 100% in this question because I'm doing an extra point where I can. Now, moving on to question 3, our final question. So I'm going to move back over to here. we'll move down again to the question, have a quick look at it. Look at lines 22 to 25. Explain in your own words what happened after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So 4-mark question here. So I've got to put a lot of detail down. And again, I start by looking, where am I being asked to look for the answer? I'm asked to look at those lines 22 to 25. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So there's line 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And there we go. So I know that my answers are in there, and they're looking for 4 marks. I was like, right, this must be quite a dense passage. So let's move back over here. I'll read it out on the purple screen so it's a bit bigger so you can see it more clearly. After the 9/11 terror attacks on the Twin Towers in New York, millions of Americans chose to drive long distances rather than take a flight. Ironically, those people, while trying to be cautious, simply increased the likelihood that they'd die in a traffic accident, and many did. And the reason for that is basically you've got a greater chance of dying in a car than an aeroplane. So the question is asking me to make 4 points about what happened after the attacks. Not saying specifically is it about people, but what. So what happened after the attacks, and it has to be in the text. Can't come from my own knowledge. So again, I use that little heading after the attacks because I don't want to keep writing after the attacks point 1, after the attacks point 2, after the attacks point 3, all the way up to point 4, 5, 6. So I only write it once and put a colon on those 2 dots, a full stop over a full stop. So the first point I look at is that millions of Americans chose to drive long distances. So a huge number, I've changed millions to a huge number, of Americans. Now I could change that to people from the USA if I wanted to, decided to travel by car. Okay, so they chose to drive long distances, they decided to travel by car. Now I haven't put in the long distances yet, so I'm going to change that to over a long range. And that's actually in the SQA marking, they'll see that as 2 separate points. So we've already halfway there. Next after that, we've got, ironically, these people, while trying to be cautious. What does that mean? So after the 9/11 terror attacks, people were trying to be cautious. Oh, sorry, that's the answer to the previous one. It's, rather than take a flight, instead of going by plane. So a 3rd point. Very, very quite dense. So people attempted to be careful. That's the section I'm looking at there, the while trying to be cautious. So I've got 4 bullet points already, but there's 2 more to be had. It simply increased the likelihood that they'd die. So basically, the more you drive, the more chances are you're going to be in a car accident. That's what they're getting at there. But I need to change the wording. So I've changed increase the likelihood that they die. I don't want to use that word die. I don't want to use the word increase in likelihood. So I use the word killed instead. So I had a larger chance of being killed. I could have said in a car crash because that's not mentioned, is it? No, that's not mentioned. I could have said car crash if I wanted to. And finally, those last 3 words I can actually translate into a longer sentence, and many did. That means many did die. So lots of people were killed in car crashes. Now I've written 6 points here, and there's only 4 going, but I'm giving myself a really good chance of getting all 4 points because I'm writing down as many points as I can. Now I could have written the answer this way. That's the same answer. But look at the difference between the 2 from my point of view, from the teacher that's marking your SQA exam. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The teachers are generally doing it in the evening after they've had a long day in school. They've been busy with their families, with their children, and they don't generally sit down till 8, 9, even 10 o'clock in the evening to start marking. So that's a lot more work for me to go in and find your marks in that paragraph there. I have to go, oh, is there 4 marks in there? Where does one point end? Where does one point, the next point begin? Etc, etc. So if you bullet point them out for me, there's less chance that I'm going to miss one of your good points. Now, generally we don't miss much, but we're human beings and it happens. So don't let it happen to you by simply writing in bullet points. And if you didn't think of 6 points, here's those 6 points but in 3 bullet points. And it's much easier for me as a marker to see inside one of those bullet points. Actually, you know what? They've made 2 or 3 points inside that bullet point. I'm going to give them the marks for that. And it's sort of a courtesy to your marker that makes their job easier and helps them to see your marks, which ultimately is what you want. You want them to see that you got the right answer as best you can. So we've done it. We've done find it, change it. We've used the formula on a longer text. You'll have probably gathered some marks. You're not expecting to get full marks at this stage. We're still at the learning stage, still at the practicing stage. But I'm very pleased with what you've done so far. Delighted that we've practiced a longer text because now you've seen the 2 sides. That the primary school side that we looked at, where you just find the right answer in the text, and then the secondary school side, the National 5 side, where you have to go and change your answer. Now, it's time to celebrate. Well done. You've done brilliantly to get this far. There'll be another video or two still in this use your own words section, but essentially you've covered a huge amount of ground. And as we looked at in an earlier video, in the point about motivation, it's important to celebrate, even if you felt you didn't get the answers right, or if you only got half the answers right, or if you only got 1 or 2 marks. You've still come on a journey, and you've still worked your way up to a point of, I'm sure by now, the mantra find it, change it is really embedded in your mind, in your head. Hopefully by me talking you through how I did the answers, it'll help you kind of adjust your approach slightly, your thinking patterns. So even though you're sitting silently in the exam hall doing it, your mind is racing, your mind is talking to you all the time. It's up to you to listen to it and to kind of guide it in the right direction. So well done again. I'll do another video or two, kind of just adding extra information, hints and tips, and approaches. But I want you to stop and celebrate. Have a cup of tea, a coffee, go out, watch something on Netflix, go meet up with your friends. I'm really pleased that we've got this far, so well done. And I'll see you in the next video.